Welcome back to Coffee with Yvonne, a show for creatives and entrepreneurs. I'm Yvonne Pearson, your host, and Darling, the founder. It always sounds good with nails, the founder of Pink Dollhouse Marketing. And on today's show, we're going to do another marketing magic episode because I know how much y'all love those. And we're going to dive into topics that you may have seen on your timeline that you were not aware about the marketing behind, that while you were scrolling on social media, or that ended up in your Slack, Teams, or group chat, because I know we have all of them. So for today's stories, we're going to do Issa Rae and the era of creator-built IP, how Zendaya, we've seen her grow up too. So proud of her. She's gorgeous as well. Fashion eats down, but how Zendaya is rewriting the rules of collaboration, and baby first Beyonce, the Lemonade edition. So grab your coffee and let's chat. Oh, I did that today. If you want to know what's inside of my cup, I typically keep it the same because budgets, but I use iced coffee, typically the one that's like unsweetened because I don't need all that extra sugar because I added in my creamer. And I love the Sweet Cream Creamer by Chobani. I have tried other brands, but unfortunately the cream just don't hit the same. You know, and sometimes the other like non-dairy creamers, I'm not going to go too deep into why I need a non-dairy creamer, but sometimes some non-dairy creamers don't be giving me what I need to give. So I just go ahead and go with the sweet cream. Sweet cream. Okay, in our first story, let's talk about Issa Rae and the era of creator-built IP. I got this from TikTok, aka the Clock app, but I also got more information by researching news information from Hooray Media and other media sources. So, from TikTok noted in their newsroom, and the newsroom, if you guys don't know, is where they put all like their press releases, right? A press release is essentially an announcement from a company about something. It could be about a new initiative that they're going into, like sustainability. It could be things like collaborations, which is what we're going to talk about here. And it also could be like new business ventures that they're doing underneath their umbrella to expand their portfolio. So to pull an excerpt from the source, TikTok and Hooray, which is Issa Rae's company, if you didn't know, she owns her own media company, which is very smart because it allows her to control like IP, creative projects, and also make sure that she maintains ownership over a lot of the work that she does. So TikTok and Hooray announced a trailblazing partnership to bring new exclusive microseries content to TikTok and Pine Drama. Available for free and ad-supported, the collaboration launches later this month with screen time produced by Hooray Digital and Issa Rae Company. Screen time marks the first creator-led microseries from a storyteller behind some of the most diverse and culturally impactful film and television projects, bringing resonant narratives to global audiences. TikTok and Hooray will also co-develop a slate of additional microseries as part of the deal, with TikTok serving as the distribution channel. So let's get into those marketing takeaways. And if you see me looking down at my screen, it's because I bring notes to the conversation to make sure we have an engaged and informed chat. So in that first marketing takeaway about microseries becoming a scaled ad-supported content engine, TikTok positioning microseries as free, premium, and ad-supported signals a shift towards short-form platform owning their own streaming life in those ecosystems. It's not just about content, it's inventory. By expanding the microseries across not just TikTok platform and Pine Drama, the platform is now building a new category arm where storytelling and monetization are narratively integrated, giving brands a future space to buy against narrative-driven, high-engagement content. And also, too, we've seen how TV has shifted over the years, right? We've seen how it's gone from the big back TVs that you had at your grandmama house or your mama house to, you saw the birth of YouTube. YouTube, I believe, started in, I think when I was either in high school or about to go to college. So it's been around for quite a while. And you saw a shift from traditional television that you saw on the TV where everyone gathered around. Then you saw YouTube where the idea of the creator was being evolved. And YouTube was groundbreaking at the time because people were, usually making like funny videos and things like that. Then you started to see a transition where people like Issa Rae were coming up in the YouTube space through original content. Hers was Awkward Black Girl before she got her deal with HBO to develop Insecure. Then you saw it evolve again with technology being the front runner behind this evolution. And you saw things like your cell phone become smaller and smaller. With that integration of the cell phone becoming smaller and more palm size, then you saw things like smartphones become a thing with touchscreens, apps, etc. That started to build the digital spaces, especially with social media. Social media at first, again, was just a space where you could just kiki all day long, but then people saw it as a promotional tool to create content and also get their name out there in less traditional media spaces, specifically for Black and brown and inclusive creators. Where we were shut out of the traditional media space, we carved our own trail in the spaces of these digital landscapes. It was things that people had never seen before, like, again, Issa Rae with Who Ray Media, like Kev on Stage, like other creators who have come up in the digital content platforms. And now, with platforms embracing longer form content, it is a mix between long and short form. It just depends on what you like. But, embracing longer form content at first, where you had to take it back, like IGTV. IGTV was a thing. Facebook used to have a whole thing with their own series that they had on the platform. I don't think they have it as much anymore. I think they started like phasing it out. But even Cardi B had her own show called Cardi Tries on Facebook. You started to see a shift away from TV to watching shows on your computer, to watching content on your phone, that became these now micro series. And micro series started to become popular when brands started to tap into it as well. Alexis Bataar, they came up with a very popular series about an Upper East Side socialite who, will wear Alexis Bataar jewelry and things like that, and became almost like a walking commercial through engaging content. And now that you see these micro series becoming popular, people's attention spans over time have become shorter and shorter for certain things. So that makes a lot of sense to do a micro drama. Short form content, you get people engaged, and then they come back for the next video. And I would also like to see these micro drama series almost evolve into the way we see streaming dropping with popular shows like Paradise. Don't give the people the content all at once. Drop it at a specific time to make it must watch. I don't know if you even could call that TV, because it's not TV on your phone. It's not television, but must watch content, I guess, on your phone, to allow for people to come at a certain time, a certain place to engage. Getting into our next marketing takeaway, let's talk about how creator-led storytelling is a new Hollywood pipeline. Bringing Issa Rae, who is an OG in this space, and Who Ray, her company, into the fold, reframes TikTok as a launch pad for culturally resonant IP. We talked about this on a previous episode, but IP means intellectual property. This strategic bet, with creators building their own communities, can incubate stories faster than traditional studios. Like I mentioned before, you have people like Issa, Kev on Stage, and others who are carving their own lane in a media space that originally did not include them in the narrative. TikTok now becomes both the development studio and the distribution channel. It collapses the entertainment value chain and gives creators unprecedented control over reach and cultural impact. And this is also great too, because we've seen ownership and the idea of who owns what change so quickly, right? At first, it was a studio would buy your product or a project, and then it would go on the major networks or whatever network. That started to change. Then you saw smaller platforms like a Tubi, places like that, who people started to make fun of at first, because Tubi was like, y'all not gonna take me seriously? Watch me cook. And Tubi started actually creating great content on their channels. They even did a special content with Kev on Stage. I think it was something called around like therapy sessions or something. But now you're seeing Tubi move into the original content lane. You see Roku doing the same thing as well. Platforms that were not originally included in the conversation because they were not huge conglomerates like a Netflix, like an HBO Max, like a Peacock, are now starting to carve their own spaces in these creator eras. And now now TikTok as a platform really shook up the social media space. Instagram thought that she was the queen of them all. She thought that she was Cersei, that she would never be dethroned in the Game of Thrones or the game of streaming in terms of content platforms. And TikTok actually snuck up in those spaces and started chipping away at Instagram's influence, to the point Instagram either had to look at their own way of how they were, promoting and allowing for creatives to have the space to create content. They had to even retool some of their strategies because they were not safe anymore. And now with TikTok going into this microseries space, taking a space that Netflix has kind of like owned, they're now giving people even more on-demand content than before. In our final marketing takeaway, let's talk about feed native cinematic content is redefining premium. So screen time is designed for how audiences actually watch. And screen time means like how long you've had this phone up, how long have you been scrolling, tapping, swiping, going back and forth between apps. That means that you need to be intentional, immersed, but concise when you're trying to present content to your target audience. TikTok now is proving that premium does not require 30-minute episodes. It requires cultural fluency, strong point of view, and narrative tension delivered at the speed of the feed. This sets a new benchmark for brands. If your storytelling is a bit built for scroll behavior, it's already outdated. And that also goes into the way that algorithms are now starting to work. Instagram recently changed theirs, in which just because a video shows up on your feed doesn't mean you're going to get the count for the view. It means that now people have to actually stop and scroll and watch your content for it to count. And TikTok is recognizing that because content, as great as it is, it could be sensory overload. There is a lot happening in the space. There's content that you want to follow from your friends or brands. There's content that they're feeding you because they think you may be interested. There's content with ads. There's content with movies. There's content everywhere. How do you get people to stop and pay attention? How are you so dynamic that you make me pay attention for even 10 seconds of my time to see what you're talking about? And that is a very hard thing to do, no matter how talented you are. And TikTok doing this micro series will allow for people to take in how they want to take in things without it being overwhelming and too long form. In our next story, let's talk about Zendaya and how she is rewriting the rules of collaboration. So I got this from Harlem Fashion Row because I saw it on their social media, but I went for additional details from On Press Room, the brand that Zendaya is collaborating with. So to pull an excerpt from the source, developed in close collaboration, the launch brings together Zendaya's perspective on modern sportswear with On's design expertise, balancing performance and personal style through refined silhouettes, color, and texture. The centerpiece of the campaign is Shape of Dreams, a film directed by Spike Jonze set inside Zendaya's imagined design world, the Dream Lab. Comprising of footwear and apparel designed to function seamlessly together, the latest offering balances Zendaya and Law Roach, who is her longtime stylist, and I will also say like mentor and friend, fashion instincts with On Swiss engineering. So let's get into those marketing takeaways. Let's first talk about how co-creation is evolving from celebrity capsule to creative direction. This isn't a typical celebrity drop. Zendaya is shaping silhouettes, textures, and a design ethos alongside On. The collaboration signals a shift from celebrity as a face to celebrity as a co-architect, giving the product cultural legitimacy and emotional depth. Consumers increasingly want to feel the collaborator's fingerprints on the work, not just see their name on the tag. And this speaks to how they just don't want someone to slap their name on something and say, I designed this. In reality, you didn't. You just use your name for IP to collect the check. But seeing people like Zendaya, who have been a fashion girly for quite a while, she, love her red bottom. I think it's a Christian Louboutin Kate shoe. She's always dressed fashionable. She's always thoughtful about her looks. Of course, that's led by Law Roach as her style architect behind a lot of her looks and designs that she wears on the red carpet. This makes sense for her to venture into the space because it's not something that's new that just popped up out of nowhere. When we look at creative collaborations, they have to make sense for your own personal brand. For example, me as a podcaster, as you know, I wear glasses a majority of the time that I'm on the show. I wear glasses darn near every single day. One, I need to. I can't see much without these glasses. It's like a 90s television. It's very hard for me to see, and genetics suck. But anyway, it would make sense for me to do a collaboration like an I Buy Direct or like a Black-owned glasses brand or something like that, because that's tied to who I am in my day-to-day. It would make sense for me to do, collaborations with things around like maybe like a handbag because I love a purse, things around like, workwear because I'm a corporate girly, things that make sense for who I am in my own personal branding and storytelling. For Zendaya, this is a good venture for her to go into because it could also expand into her working with other fashion houses on different projects. She's already been a face for key campaigns like Louis Vuitton. She's already been, on the cover of multiple magazines. This will also allow for the brand to get their product in new audiences and new spaces that may not have been aware of who they were. So Zendaya doing this also lifts their own market, visibility, their own market share of what they could be doing to expand and further increase their customer base. In that second marketing takeaway, let's talk about how cinematic storytelling is becoming core to product launches. By having Spike Jonze create this Shape of Dreams mini movie, it reframes the collection as a narrative experience, not as a product release. By visualizing the design and the process in the Dream Lab, On turns creativity itself into a marketing asset. This instead is a masterclass in brand world building. The film becomes emotional entry point, and apparel becomes the artifact of that world. And it's also smart too because they could then splice that content into multiple campaigns. They can use that for a dynamic ad campaign across various platforms like a Google, targeted ads, things like that. They could turn it into short form content on social media through like a video campaign, breaking the story apart into various themes. They could throw it onto their website, include it in language for email copy and things like that, where you have like, maybe it turned into GIFs, whatever you want to call it, for emails in which it's like, repeating like a certain look that's the highlight of the actual content for the email, and call to action copy to go to shop the actual look on the website. They could turn it into like a digital storybook in which is like, a digital magazine or some kind of like lookbook that people can look at that's not just static imagery, but it's something when you flip the page, each part of the movie comes to life, almost like a one of those old school, I can't think of it, but when you had like the little shutter click things when we were kids, they could turn into that online, and then in-person engagement, create something like that for like an activation in which you're flipping through the different frames where you see the actual movie come to life through that, flip interaction. There's so many things you could do with this one piece of content, and I do believe in stretching your content out like pantyhose until you get a run, because that means you put all the life you can, you pulled all the life out of it to make sure that that content has actually gotten the value that you want for your business or what you're trying to do with your campaign. In that final marketing takeaway, let's talk about performance and style as the new luxury code. On is using this partnership to redefine what premium sportswear looks like. Engineered performance wrapped in effortless everyday style. This positions the brand squarely in the quiet luxury meets functional fashion space, a category with massive growth potential as consumers seek pieces that move with them across contexts. Zendaya's global influence amplifies this positioning across fashion, sports, and culture. And also, too, as we get, older and more settled into our day-to-day lives, performance wear has become a part of who I am as well. I just don't want clothes that I'm just going to sit around and look cute in every day. I mean, I want to look cute. But I also want to be able to function. I want to be able to move. I want to be able to feel comfortable while still being stylish. And I think that's why brands like Aloe have become very popular. I think that's why when Old Navy released a new sportswear collection, which is very comfortable, by the way, you should get you some, but I think that's why I became so comfortable too, because it doesn't mean that athleisure or performance sportswear has to look dull, has to look, frumpy. And by her tapping into that market is very smart. People want to be able to be stylish, still feel like they're pulled together in a way that makes sense for their life and their day-to-day activities. Okay, in our final story, let's talk about Baby's First Beyonce, the Lemonade Edition. So I got this from Billboard. I saw it on their social media, but I went for more information on Billboard's website. Beyonce, I just like saying it like that, you know. Beyonce's Lemonade is being reimagined as Lullabies for the album's 10th anniversary. My God, on today. Has it been 10 years since we saw that bat? Has it been 10 years since, hold up, they don't love you like I love you. Slow down, they don't love you like I love you. Has it been 10 years since 6-inch heels? She walked down the room like nobody business. Damn. Has it been 10 years since Don't Hurt Yourself? Who do you think I am? You ain't married to no average boy. You boy. As I bounce to the next boy. And keep your money. I got my own. Keep a bigger smile on my face. Being alone. Bad mother. God sorry. Anyway, that's not why we're here. Okay, sorry, I got a little on tangent. Billboard mentioned that Beyonce's Lemonade is being turned into Lullabies for the 10th anniversary. To pull an excerpt from the source, just in time for the 10th anniversary of Beyonce's Billboard 200 topping visual album Lemonade, Rockabye Baby is releasing its child-friendly take on the critically acclaimed set Billboard exclusively reveals. Lullaby renditions of Beyonce's Lemonade will arrive earlier this month on April 10th, just shy of 2 weeks before Queen Bee's celebrated album hits its 10-year milestone on April 23rd. Unlike most Rockabye Baby takes, this set will be a full album reimagining of the Grammy-winning release. The version will, as with the others, featuring soothing instruments such as bells, xylophones, instead of the pop star's superstar soaring vocals. So let's get into those marketing takeaways. Let's talk about how catalog reinvention extends cultural lifestyles. Rockabye Baby transforming Lemonade into a full lullaby album is a strategic play in catalog revitalization. Instead of relying on anniversaries alone, the music industry is increasingly using reinterpretation to introduce iconic works to the next generation. In this case, literally from birth. It is a reminder that legacy IP can be endlessly recontextualized when the emotional core is strong. And also, too, let's take it back a little bit. Even thinking about when we were kids, how we were introduced to music as children. You know, there's a reason why, our faves are our faves to this day. It's because of the influence of our parents or those who raised us. I didn't know hip hop. Don't judge me, by the way. I didn't know hip hop until I was roughly 12-ish years old, but I knew who Michael was. I knew who Prince was. I knew who Donna was, Mariah, Boyz II Men. I knew who all of them was. I knew who all the gospel greats were because that's what was introduced to me as a child. And it also became ingrained in how I like my musical taste. To this day, disco and pop, funk, runway, kind of music is some of my favorite music because of, the instruments used, because of the electronic base of like how they use the keyboard and different instruments. I love that because that's how I was influenced music wise through like the Michaels, the Prince, Donnas, etc. By introducing Beyonce through these lullabies to children when they're in the development stages, it also allows for parents to share their love for an artist in a more appropriate setting. We love Lemonade, but we don't need the babies trying to bring back to preschool. We don't need them trying to bring back to preschool. So we can introduce Beyonce's Lemonade in a more kid-friendly way that will allow for parents to share their love for the artist in a way that makes sense. It's a very smart move on both Beyonce as a business move and also for how she can continue to build her fan base in that next generation. And that goes a bit more into that marketing takeaway, the second one we're going to talk about, which is cross-generational brand building that strengthens artist equity. By turning Lemonade into a child-friendly experience, Beyonce's brand, as I mentioned before, expands into family culture without diluting their artistic integrity. Parents, like I mentioned, who grew up with the album, my God, on today. Let it go, Yvonne. You elder millennial. It's fine. But parents who grew up with the album now get to share it with their children or children in their lives and deepen that emotional connection, reinforcing Beyonce's multi-generation cultural footprint. This is a long-tail brand equity in action. We already see the babies on TikTok watching old videos of Beyonce. We see them watching Homecoming. We see them watching Beyonce Bowl. We see them watching Renaissance. I need y'all to pull in more Destiny's Child, though. because she just didn't start as a solo artist. She started as Destiny's Child. If you want to take it back further, for the True Hive, it started in Girls' Time, if you want to take it back even further. But Beyonce as an artist has truly evolved to the point where, and we can argue, but she is the Michael Jackson of our generation in terms of that influence. You know, Michael Jackson is still one of the greatest artists to this day, dead or alive. In terms of cultural context as it stands today, Beyonce, for a lot of people, is their Michael in terms of their artist integrity, in terms of the catalog and the cultural impact. It makes sense for parents to want to share their love of this artist, in this case Beyonce, with their children so they can share those musical tastes and pass those things on to their kids. It's nothing like going to a family reunion and you hear, you know, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You, Remember the Time, and everyone's eyes light up. Not just one generation, everyone's eyes light up. Parents want that, or families want that for their kids or the kids in their life, because music is something that you can pass down that doesn't require, you know, money to do it. Doesn't require wealth to do it. Music is accessible no matter what your background is. Everyone should have access to music. And having Beyonce go into this lullaby space, I can see her further expanding her catalog, perhaps to do Cowboy Carter, perhaps to do other things like maybe doing Destiny's Child, pulling in their albums to turn it into like kid-friendly songs that are along this line of like instruments and things like that. In that final marketing takeaway, let's talk about how visual reinterpretation keeps iconic imagery alive. The Lullaby album cover and the animated Hold Up reinterpretation, they pay homage to the original visuals while softening them for a new audience. This demonstrates how powerful imagery can be adapted across tone, format, and audience while still maintaining recognizability. For marketers, it is a lesson in how to evolve brand assets without losing their cultural resonance. And that also speaks to how you see other artists go into spaces that are more kid or family friendly. You see, you know, like I think Lil Jon has done things that are kid friendly. Ludacris, he has a whole show around one of his daughters that was, I believe, on Netflix that was kid friendly. Snoop Dogg, as we gonna leave that side alone, but Snoop Dogg has a whole show on YouTube that is about, you know, being kid friendly. It's important for people to understand you don't have to lose the center of your brand and who you are if you go into these different audiences. You just have to adjust to meet the need, right? And going back to like how they evolved the album cover, it's so cute, by the way, but it's very smart because, you know, as I mentioned before, we can't have the babies pulling up to pre-K with a bat in a yellow dress. It'll be so cute though for Halloween, but not in real life. Making sure that the assets match the audience is so important. And I think people forget sometimes too that you have to make sure your assets are sometimes adjusted to meet the needs of your target audience. That's why things like Gracie's Corner does very well. Gracie's Corner has bops. We all know Gracie got bops. Got me going, you know, eating my vegetables on the side. But it also is kid friendly and allows for kids to have fun with things like hip hop or things that are culturally relevant without taking it too far. So Beyonce doing this and other artists like Snoop Dogg, like I mentioned before, Lil Jon, Ludacris, etc., those in the hip hop or R&B space, is a very smart move for them to have that longevity and still allows them to make a bag without diluting their personal brand storytelling. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's chat. Thank you so much for listening and or watching on YouTube. Don't forget to follow Coffee with Yvonne on IG and Threads at Coffee with Yvonne. You can find my personal account where I cut up who I am in my day-to-day on Instagram and TikTok, aka the Clock app, at Yvonne_creative marketer. To learn more about me and my business that I own, that I just finished paying my taxes on, I ain't getting nothing back. It's okay, Yvonne. It's okay. You can find that at pink.housemarketing.com, or you can go to Instagram at pink.housemarketing. You can slide into my DMs. That's cool. And creators, I'm going to say this every single week until you get it. Don't forget to keep showing up, keep creating, and that your voice matters. I cannot wait to chat with you on another episode of Coffee with Yvonne. Okay, bye. Coffee with Yvonne is produced and edited by Yvonne Pearson. Coffee with Yvonne is created by Pink Dollhouse Marketing. You can catch the latest episodes by subscribing to Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.